2024 Blue Ridge Marathon. We're going to be covering the marathon and the marathon only for this event breakdown here. So starting off here, April 20th, that is our event date. Start time is 7:30 a.m. in the corral system. Look for pace time markers to find out which one is going to be your goal. And I will caution you against doing a best time at this race. This is more of a completed type race. The marathon course is listed here. It's limited to 750 runners, so it's going to be a little bit more spaced out than usual, which is awesome. Elevation gain loss, 7,400 feet. We'll dive into that a little bit more in a second. And it does have, most importantly, a 7.5-hour cutoff and a 6-hour cutoff time at mile 22. So you got to be there by 6 hours to keep on going for those last couple of miles. So they also list if you do not maintain a 16-20 mile pace, then you will potentially get pulled from this course. This is the full marathon map as we open it up here, and we will talk about that in a second. But first, let's talk about some other cool things. So on that Friday beforehand, we have Friday night free concert. 4, 5:30, and 7 are going to be 3 different bands. Make sure you are attending that for some pre-race fun. The race weekend schedule is here as followed. That Friday, April 19th, 3 to 8 p.m. is that welcome party, with 3 to 8 being that packet pickup beginning at 3 p.m. there. Race Expo 3 to 8, and 4 p.m. is the Freedom First Down by Downtown Music Festival on stage. You can get your tickets there, and of course the runners get a discounted rate. Check your email box for that. Saturday, April 20th is race day. 1 a.m., 2:30 a.m. double marathon starts, which is not going to be us, but if you are in that, make sure you're aware of that. 5:30 to 7 a.m. packet pickup Elmwood Park stage for people who did not make it on Friday over there. So that 3 to 8 p.m. packet pickup on Friday was listed, so make sure you are attending that. And I would, if you do have the time, I would just attend it on Friday. No reason to not. Just creates a little bit less stress on race morning. 7:35, race starts with awards happening at 2 p.m. for the full marathon and the double marathon. All right, 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 we have the Finish Festival, and then that Sunday, April 21st, we have the slowest 5K in America, which is a pretty awesome thing. And there's also a little bit more music there. Awards. Make sure you are heading over to the awards page if you feel like you do have, if you have won an award. Excuse me. Age group awards are going to happen from 10 and under, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, and then 5-year increments up until 70, where they just have a 70-plus age group. Live runner tracking app. This is our tracker app for this race. I would just search Blue Ridge Marathon there. You can also head over to this page and go to download for Android or download for Apple. They have the course map, Expo packet pickup, the weekend schedule, parking, which is another hot topic here, which again is listed on their website. So everything starts at the Elmwood Park this year, and there is a Google Maps link there. If you do open that up, this is what pops up for you. You have a nice little dot for you, and you can zoom out, you can zoom in, you can hit the directions button to it. Very, very key for you there. So the Elmwood Park Garage and Parking Lot. This is the closest lot for both Expo and the race. It's free after Friday at 5, and then free all weekend. The cost to park before 5 is $2 an hour, and then a daily max of $8. You must enter from the 201 Tazewell Ave Southeast Street. 2-hour street parking can be found a couple blocks away, and I would just try to make it to that garage for the race there. And that is parking. Make sure you read this here if you have a unique situation and you just want to go to it. This is the marathon race guide from previous year, and you can click through it and you can get a good feel of what's going to happen out there. It's pretty much everything that we just talked about here. And you can just scroll through this, like the Race Expo. This is the course, which is going to be a little bit different this year, which is going to be cool. And just keep on clicking through that. Again, this is the course certificate. Again, you can find that as well. So, heading over to our the course map here. Let's open this. This is our course map this year. And you can find another version online very easily right here. Before we get into specifics on the course and all of that, they do say that the course is, that was a terrible way to say that, but they do say that the course hydration is provided by Tailwind Nutrition and nutrition provided by Goo Energy. That is pretty much all that they list in terms of um, race specific nutrition, which isn't great. So if you could get a little more information at the exhibit or at the expo, or just reach out to them, I would highly encourage you to do that. Just for a reference, this is our tailwind that is going to be out on course. A 1 scoop serving of this has 100 calories, 300 milligrams of sodium, 25 grams of carbohydrate. If you are an athlete that needs a little bit more than this, and I would suggest you do that on a course like this, I would highly, highly recommend you do not 1, maybe 2 cups of this Tailwind product that you are going to be engaged with on race day. Also, Goo Energy, for those that are not familiar, I'm going to head over there super, super fast so we can get a just a generic gauge on things. Let's get our gels, and let's just do a Roctane gel. So this is our goos that we're going to have on race day. This is one packet, has another 100 calories, 21 carbs, 100 cals, 40 grams of calcium, 125 milligrams of sodium. So people who are only fueling with the sodium, or for the sodium benefits of goo, you're probably going to need a little bit more than that on race day, so make sure you keep that in mind. I'm assuming they are also going to have some water out there on course, so don't be afraid to mix and match things. So this is our marathon course that we have, and there's a couple of really major flags over here. The first is this first section over here. Section number 2 that we're going to be diving into is here. Section 3, Section 4, Section 5, and then Section 6 is the remainder of the race. And you'll notice that those first 6 sections come before the 20-mile mark, with the last one just kind of filling in. So major thing first, this course has only 320 or 3,200 feet of elevation gain. I know there was a big number thrown out there earlier on their landing page, but again, only 3,200 feet of elevation gain, which means your course is going to be a bit slower. When we first start out here, this is our first little section right in here. This is going to be a point where I highly encourage you to not go out too hard. If you do go out too hard, you're going to pay for it later big time here at a race like this. So at this course, just run your race in this section right here. Even if you want to walk or just kind of cruise, this is the perfect spot to do that, okay? Afterwards, we have a major hill right here. Remember, 32 feet, 3,200 feet of elevation gain. Highlighting this section here, we have, and we're going to go back just a little bit more before that first mile marker, we have 6.3 miles here. We also have 1,400 feet of elevation gain. So that is a major, major chunk of our elevation, almost half, believe it or not. And that's going to all come right before the 7-mile mark right there. 7.1 to be exact. And that is at the top of Roanoke Mountain over there. So leaning into this, let's dive into this hill a bit more. And I'm going to highlight our first 2 sections over here just to kind of allow us to see it a little bit easier. First of all, obviously, we have some inclines that we are going to need to tackle. This first one right here, but then we do get a little bit of a drop, and then it goes up, and then it undulates steadily down for about a mile, and then it really goes up after that. Okay, so this is not just a straight shot from mile 0.8 to that 7.1 mile marker. There's going to be some undulations in this hill over here. So these sections right here are not going to be for you to really push the pace. These sections are going to be for you to kind of recover, get your bearings before you have to go up again. This section right here, you could argue you're going to be going a little bit more at marathon pace here if you're feeling good, just because it's a little bit longer, steadier downhill. It's about a mile decline right there, and it's really just ever so slight, so a false flat or false downhill flat. And then you're going to sky it back up again to mile 7 over here for another 2-mile section where you are climbing. And so to get you more specifics on that when we dive in here, this section of our course. Again, 2.2 miles. We have 770 feet of elevation gain right through here. You're going to be experiencing elevation pitches of up to 12%, like right here at mile 5.9. So that's going to be, it's going to change the way we tackle this a bit. So zooming back out to a little bit more macro here. As we are targeting these hills, normally we tell you, you want to run on the downhills just to minimize the time lost. But this is kind of the opposite scenario here. You don't really want to push the pace always going up. And some of those steeper pitches, don't be afraid to walk or picture it like a hike almost, like competitive hiking. I guess that would be mountaineering. But don't be afraid to alternate between a brisk walk and a light jog up these hills over here. And that is probably going to be one of your faster ways to get up these sharper inclines and just these steady hills. So one of the worst things you can do on a course like this, and again, this is only the first 7 miles, so we have a lot more to go. But even in this section right here, one of the worst things you could do is really, really sky your effort and just really peg your heart rate up really high. If you do that, you're going to pay for it later on. There's 19 more miles to go after this. So no reason to really rush this. Unless you're pushing the 16-minute mile pace barrier there. So walk, run, alternate up this section here. Now, we talked about the downhills very briefly, but now they're going to come into full effect as we highlight the next 8 miles of our course here. So this section, our first major downhill right here, that is our section number 2 that we're going to be talking about on course. This section is about another 2 miles. We have 700 feet of elevation loss with an average gradient of -6, with, of course, pitches in the 13 to 14 and occasionally higher for a brief moment in time that are downhill. Okay, so this is going to be a very, very problematic area in the highlighted section here. That is because most people who want to just totally crush the downhills are going to be experiencing some quad fatigue big time, right? So your running form is going to have to be really, really sharp here. And just like we talked about, it's kind of flipped here in terms of walking and running. The downhill sections over here, especially right here, don't be afraid to walk some of these sections over here. I know it's downhill and it's going to feel like you're giving away a lot, but if you are running down a negative 15% pitch, you're going to be using a lot of energy to stop your body, right? It's almost counterintuitive. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and the cons, and I really wouldn't run the super steep pitches on the downhill portion here. I would get down it as best as possible, but I would not actively attack these downhill sections unless you're a front runner at a course like this. Next part of our section number 3 is the flatter section, and this is arguably going to be it's going to be really good for people. It's going to be really bad. This comes at mile 9.2 to 11.2, so about a 2-mile stretch here once we get to the bottom of that hill. This is going to be not a flat area. It's going to be undulating. There's going to be some false flats mixed in here. There's going to be some downhills mixed in. It's going to be kind of, let's classify this section as normal running because it only has about 120, 130 feet of elevation gain here. When you are on this section, again, depending on what you did leading up to this is going to be a, oh my goodness, I need to recover section, or this is going to be a, hey, I'm feeling good. Let's keep this rolling mentality during this point in time. This is going to be where you're going to be starting to catch some people if you're doing it right. Okay. Now the hill after that, this is going to be a bit of a shocker, right? Because we had about 2 miles of normal style running before we have another 420, 430 foot hill to climb over the course of 1.5 miles. Max gradient of 7.7-ish, but don't be surprised if there are some other areas where that pitch does pop up again. This hill is going to start out not as aggressive as the middle to top, so as you ramp up this hill, it's going to get a little bit more steep here before we head back down. And again, once you get closer to the top, it's going to be counterintuitive. Don't be super excited to grab the peak of this hill, okay? You want to get there, but you don't want to get there as fast as you possibly can, just sprinting 5K pace up here. You want to maintain that effort. You want to alternate your walk runs up here, and you don't want to overdo it here. Because again, when we zoom out here, we're only at about the halfway point here. Let's call it mile 12.6. at the top of this peak here, coming back into town here at this zigzag portion. And then one of my favorite portions of this course is our zigzag all the way back down, getting some switchbackies in there. We have negative 10s, average gradient negative 0.6, right? The max gradient is a little bit, it's probably coming right around here for our hill. But again, you are approaching negative 9s, negative 8s, and in some spots even negative 10s towards the middle here. This is a 2.1 mile stretch, so you're not going to get to the bottom quickly. You're going to be able to see where you're going sometimes. And again, don't force this. The key on this course is just to kind of finesse things as you go. All right, don't be super surprised if you're giving some time away in the downhill and you slowly claw people back when it's not the downhill. You want to watch out for that downhill speed here just because you are going to actively start to recruit some of those muscles, and if you do so preemptively, it's going to be problematic. Zooming into the last major things that we're going to talk about on this course. We're going back into town before we run out a little bit here. This is a slow ramp up. So from mile 14.6 all the way up to 18.7, I would view that as one long hill. Even though there is a little downhill in there, I would just view this as one long downhill, just to kind of make it easier on your brain. In this section, we have 800 feet of elevation gain of our 3,200, so a major portion here. Another also important thing to remind everyone of is we do have 150 feet of elevation loss during this section here. So not a throwaway section at all here. This is going to be one of our more technical sections, believe it or not, mostly because people are going to want to really start running here, and that is a fool's errand right through here. You don't really want to just totally catch up with the pace, floor the pace, however you want to view it. You want to just slowly establish your rhythm here during this section up to mile 15.5. Then from 15.5, we are ramping back up all the way up there. And again, 780 feet of elevation gain in here. Average gradient of 5%, and we have some 11%ers mixed in here. As you start out through this point, we do have a 6-ish% elevation gain. And then it slowly cools off for just a second. And again, most people are going to take that elevation cool off as an opportunity to really push the pace. And I would not do that. This race is going to be about being very patient throughout. And you're not going to be running the paces that you want necessarily, but you're going to be running the paces that you need. It's kind of a better way to say that for much of this race until we get to the back half of this section here. Once mile 17 hits, nutrition is going to be very important. And as we start to pick up here, the road is going to start to pick up as well. This is going to be where you have one of your steepest inclines on this section. About 8.5, 9% mixed in here. And before we experience a small little downhill from mile 18 all the way to about 18.3-ish. So, a little bit more than a quarter mile, not a half mile, somewhere in there. Again, a funky distance. It's a distance that you want it to be longer, but it's not. And this is our first real opportunity to kind of run the downhill for the first half as we kind of want to, but watch out for the second half of this downhill where it does dip down. Dipping back up here, we have, again, the steeper sections of our elevation inclines up on this section here. So again, don't try attacking the peak necessarily. You want to get there, of course, but you don't want to rush it necessarily. That's a good way of thinking about it. Then we have some declines here, and after you get past this point, right about 18, let's call it 19 miles, excuse me, then you can kind of feel out how you're feeling. I hesitate to say you should be running this pace here and then doing this and doing that, because this is going to be largely dictated by what you did beforehand. If we highlight the whole first part of this race here, 2,800 feet of our elevation gain, so we only have about, let's call it 400 feet left, and if we highlight this hill right through here, we're getting 150 feet of that elevation right through there. So the next 6-ish miles is going to be kind of undulating. It's going to be what you would want to run your marathon pace. And this is often one of the harder sections of the race, not because of the pure elevation aspect of this, but because of what you did preceding this, okay? So once you are arriving at mile 14, you really need to start checking in with yourself and saying, hey, how's my nutrition? How's my pacing? How are my legs? What's going on with my body? Am I getting a little hot? Am I too cold? Just keep going through your checklist that you should be doing the whole time here. And as you get to this section right through here, as you get closer and closer to the bottom, it should hopefully start to be go time here, right? Start fueling, start hydrating, do what you need to do to set up this last 6-ish miles for success. If you don't, and your goal is just to get here, you're going to pay for it big time in these last couple of sections or last couple of miles, even though it's not as hard as the preceding miles beforehand. The biggest the biggest one that almost everyone can see, right, is this one right through here. So everyone's going to be running this one mostly smart, mostly the way they should, except for a couple of outliers. What is not going to be ran smart, is this section over here and even this section over here with especially this little box right through here. All right. So be very, very smart in these sections leading up. And if you do that, these little miles to the back half over here are going to be a little bit easier than everyone else around you, and you will start reeling people in, even though it's not a big field. Okay, be smart out there, guys. I hope it's a great race. Hope it has so much fun for you. And let me know how it goes, everyone. I wish everyone the best of luck this year. I can't wait to hear all the stories from 2024 Blue Ridge Marathon. Good luck, everyone.